The next thing we need to do is to set an environment variable, a very important environment variable called Java_home. And what that does is that allows other programs, and specifically other Java tools, or tools in the Java ecosystem, to find out where you've installed the JDK2. The reason being is so they can access the different files and folders from that installation directory. So we're going to set that up right now. So first of all, if we go into Explorer, and if we just double check that it did actually install, so if we're going to C, we'd expect to see a tools folder. We can see a tools folder here, we'll double click that. Then we have this JDK folder, which is where it's installed the Java Development Kit to. So if I double click this is basically the JDK, this is all the stuff that's in it. And the reason we want to set this environment variable to Java_home is so that other tools can find this directory structure, so that, for example, they might be able to access the tools which come shipped with the JDK. So we can see the important ones here. There's Javac, which is our Java-C, which is the Java compiler. There's Java, which is the Java virtual machine. So that's one reason. Another reason can be to actually access, if we go into JRE and then into lib, then if we scroll down, we'll be able to see rt.jar. And rt.jar is a very important file. It's basically the whole collection of libraries and classes which comprise the Java platform itself. So when you import different classes that are available to you out of the box with Java, like for example some of the collection classes like lists or sets, which we'll see much later in the course, then the actual compiled code which is included is available in this rt.jar folder. And there are other libraries as well which would be useful to other tools, which is why we need to have them made accessible to those tools via this Java_home environment variable. So let's just hop up one level and one level again, and we'll see how to do that. So if I right click here where it says this PC and go into properties, then you'll see this option here which says advanced system settings. So if we click that, and then if we go into this section here which is environment variables, you can see here now that we have the full set of environment variables which have been defined currently on this particular machine. And these are divided up into two areas. We've got user variables, which are environment variables which are just specific for me when I log on to this machine. In other words, if somebody else logged onto this machine, if I was sharing this machine with somebody else, they wouldn't see these environment variables, or rather the tools they were using wouldn't be able to see the environment variables that I set here to be personal to me. And then the other type of environment variables you have are system variables. And with a system variable, that's basically where no matter who logs onto the machine, the environment variables which you set here will be accessible to all tools regardless of who's logged on and who's running them. And that's normally what we do when we're setting a development machine up to be able to develop Java code on. So here I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it Java_home, all in capitals. And then if I just go back to Explorer, click in the address bar, Control C to copy. I can also just right click and do copy. And then if I go back with Alt Tab just into this new system variable window and just paste that into here with Control V, or I could also have just right clicked and done paste as well. Then I'll just hit OK, and then you'll see now it's created this new environment variable here, Java_home, which is great. That's exactly what we want. The other thing to do though is to make sure that the path, the so-called system path, contains the tools which we've seen in the bin subdirectory of the JDK installation. So just to refresh your memory, if we go back to here, inside, this is Java Home here, inside this folder we've got a bin subdirectory, and inside here we have all of the commands that we actually want to be able to use. So in other words, when we go into a DOS prompt, we want to ensure that when we type one of these commands, that the DOS prompt knows to look into this directory to be able to find the command to execute it. So to do that, again, Alt and Tab back into our system properties. If we now, you can either double click or you can also just click edit to edit that specific environment variable. And you can see here, these are basically the components of the system path. So normally these are all just kind of stuck onto one line separated by semicolons. But in this window, it's separated them out for us to give us some kind of visual ordering so we can see what's going on and to make them easier to manage. Now how we read this is basically that when we type something in a DOS prompt, the first folder that it will look in, which is this one here, is the one it's going to try and find that command in. If it can't find that command in that particular folder, if it doesn't exist in that directory, then it's going to look into the next one, which is system root system32, which is one of the system folders. If it can't find it there, it'll go to this folder, and so on. So what we want to do is we want to put in a new entry in here, which is going to be Java_home, and we're putting percentage signs around it to say basically take whatever's in the Java_home environment variable and replace it with what its actual value is there. So that means that will be C:\tools/ then JDK 1.8. whatever it was. And so that's the directory we've installed the JDK to. Now we just need to put / and then bin. and the \bin corresponds to this bin subdirectory here. Now the other thing is I want to make sure that it's the first item in the system path. So I'm doing this move up, so now it's gone to the first position, and the reason for that is because Windows has also put this other reference in here, which we don't want it to get confused with, because we want to have reference the actual real JDK that we've just installed and not some lightweight JRE that's part of Windows. So if we just do OK for this, and then we can see it's here now in the path system variable, and now do OK again, and then if we close this and close this too, and close this, then if we get a DOS prompt up by typing in CMD, which is the quickest way of being able to get there, and then going up to command prompt, and now we can see we're actually in a DOS prompt itself, also known as a command prompt, as you can see, and that means that now if we type Java -version, we should see that we've got version 1.8, which is found, which corresponds to the version specifically in that bin subdirectory in the JDK that we just installed, and we also do javac, or javac -version, which is the Java compiler, and then again we have the same version, which also implies that it's in the same folder. If we do set j, it'll show us all environment variables that start with j, and we've got one defined here, which is java_home, pointing to that directory where we installed the JDK to. And because this version here lines up with this version here and this version here, in other words they're all the same, at this point we've correctly set up the JDK to run on this Windows machine, and we can start developing Java programs with it.